Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy. I am a compulsive eater from Los Angeles, and I am the vice chair of GreySheeters Anonymous World Services. And welcome to our quarterly town hall. We have Carla is our moderator today, Carla B. And so if everyone can please put, if you're not identified in your actual square, if you can just please put your first name in the square, that'll make it easier for the moderator. We have Linda, who is our trusted servant doing timing. And Linda, just one piece of housekeeping, at 45 minutes into the town hall, it's an hour and 30-minute town hall. 45 minutes into the town hall, if you can please give us, we're going to let us know. We'll take a 1-minute break and we're going to switch over with for the interpretation. So if you can set an alarm for that. And then Joey will be taking our notes. And as you all know, it's being recorded. So welcome, everybody. Also, housekeeping, if you have a question or a comment, please do not put it in the chat. Instead, please raise your virtual hand so I can make sure to see you and call on you. And the purpose of the town hall is for the fellowship to ask questions, make suggestions, and raise concerns about GSA World Services. And this time, what we did a little differently than 3 months ago is everyone had the opportunity, if they chose to submit questions ahead of time to the chair at GreySheet.org, so we could ensure to get those answered today or ahead of time. If there were any confidential questions, those were to go to communication@GreySheet.org, and they would be de-identified, and then we would be able to answer those questions. We will do our best to answer any questions that were not submitted ahead of time today, but if we cannot answer them, then in June, they will be in service matters in June. So what I'm going to do is first we'll do introductions from the people here on the Board of Trustees. And then after that, we are going to do 20 minutes of questions and feedback for the Board of Trustees. Then we'll have our special topics. So the topic that was postponed from January, which is the clarifications document, there'll be a presentation on the clarifications document. Then the other special topic is our anniversary and the census and such. And then we have updates on progress on our vision and 4 core functions. So we have integrity of the GreySheet program. Grania will do that. Susan will do literature, Liat public information, and Miguel website. We'll have presentations by 3 intergroups. Southern Central Intergroup by Caroline, Iceland by Homfredor, Duty will do Israel, and I will make some announcements. And then Grania will report on the 7th tradition donations, and we'll make some announcements and we'll close. So that's how things will work. All right, so if you are on the Board of Trustees, do you have a question, Linda?
Regarding timing, do I time other things 5 minutes?
Yes, so I will let you know. So yes, we will. Let's do this quickly, and then we'll get to the timing. So if you are on the Board of Trustees, if you can raise your virtual hand or introduce yourself, that would be great. Grania, we can start with you.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm Grania. I'm a compulsive eater. I'm in Houston, and I am the chair of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Grania. Maggie?
Yes, good morning. My name is Maggie, and I am a compulsive eater, and I am a Board of Trustee member. I'm in Oregon.
Thank you. Joey?
Hey everyone, Joey here from Long Island, New York. I'm a member of the board, and I'm also the assistant treasurer. And welcome everyone. Hola amigos, amigas.
And I can't see the people's pictures. So if anyone else is on here, I thought I saw Ofer get on originally.
Yeah. Ofer, I am from Israel and I'm a board member.
Thank you. And then is Dan, our non-compulsive eater board member, is Dan on? Okay. All right. If all of you can please put your identifying information in the chat, everybody else, just your name, your role, if you're on a committee, your intergroup, and your email, that would be fantastic. So the first thing that we're going to do, Grania, do you have a question? Okay, the first thing we're going to do is for 20 minutes, Linda, and it is, I'm going to ask for any questions you have or feedback about GreySheeters Anonymous World Services. And then what I will do, if I can answer it, I will. If not, I will direct it to the appropriate chairperson or board member. And yeah, that's what we'll do. So are there any questions, comments, feedbacks? We could use it, please. Anyone have any questions? Just raise your virtual hand so I can see you. Okay, Pam.
This isn't about what the board, well, about sort of the structure of the board, but more about the conduct of meetings. And so I don't know if that's an appropriate question at this time.
Okay, so it's a great question. It's not appropriate for this forum because each group is autonomous. And so the meetings happen in the group. Are you talking about the actual meetings that we have having to do with like registering meetings or just conduct in the meeting itself?
No, the conduct, the rules around certain meetings and whether they are considered consistent with the traditions.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, like some meetings have very strict requirements for how you sit and how you speak and what you can, where you can look. And I'm wondering if those people are knocked off the meetings, if it is a violation of the tradition that the only requirement for GSA membership is the desire to stop eating compulsively.
Right. So I totally hear you. That is absolutely a question for the group. So the group would decide what's best for the group. It doesn't have to do with World Services.
Okay.
We try very strongly to make sure that each intergroup and group is autonomous.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or feedback for the board? Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a compulsive overeater and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the GreySheet. I write them down, I commit them to my sponsor, and I don't eat no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. And thank you all so much for your service. It's amazing to me. That's the first thing I want to say. You are just an amazing group. My question is, are we going to continue to work on more literature? The Living Abstinence book is like a miracle floating in the air. I would love to see us continue to do that kind of thing, as well as in some ways using our own OA big book just as much as we use the AA big book. That's just my comment. I started a really long time ago. It only took me 25 years to get abstinent. But that book is important, and I think we've sort of dropped it. So
are you talking about the GSA 12 and 12?
Well, I just realized what I said, and it's the OA big book, and that's not what we do.
No.
So never mind to that.
Okay. So let me call on Susan if she's here. I just can't see her now. Susan, if you want to raise your virtual hand. Susan is the chair of our literature committee, and There she is. Susan, do you want to, what's next as far as literature is concerned?
Very quickly, because I do have 5 minutes later in the meeting and I don't want to repeat exactly what I'm going to say then. We have a number of projects underway. And so rest assured, there will be definitely more literature coming down the pike, some sooner rather than later. And a few other exciting developments for our committee within the last few months since my report in January. And so there is very definitely a very much alive literature committee, Michelle. And I thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Michelle. Any other questions, feedback? How much time do we have, Linda?
15 minutes.
Okay. We're here if you have any questions, feedback for any of the committee chairs, if they're here, or if there are no further questions right now, what we could do is jump into the special topics, and then if at the end there's any more questions, then we may be able to pick that up. Maybe that'll facilitate some questions. Okay, all right. So Linda, if you can now time for 10 minutes, Grania is going to speak about the clarifications. Grania, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm Grania, the chair of the Board of Trustees. Since this is my second term. Let me just make sure I can see everybody here. And I'm going to speak about the report of the GreySheet Committee, which met from 2018 to 2020, and I was the chair of that committee. The report, which was published in August of 2020, was called GreySheet Abstinence, Clarifications, and Sponsor Guidelines. And it is exactly what the report is named. It's a report of a committee. It's clarifications and guidelines and recommendations for their potential use by members of the fellowship. What the committee isn't and what the report isn't is related to tradition 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. The GreySheet Committee, which was commissioned by the World Service Board of Trustees, is not an authority. It's not a governing body. It's not an enforcement agency. GSA's, GreySheeters Anonymous World Services, does not sit in judgment of anybody's abstinence or sponsorship. In addition, the committee is not an ongoing service. It doesn't stand by waiting to interpret the GreySheet and answer questions on how we weigh and measure from the GreySheet. Our sponsors, since the early 70s, our sponsors interpret the GreySheet. We surrender to our sponsors' interpretation. There is no single uniform interpretation of the GreySheet. So why did we have the committee? Where did it come from? It stems from the purpose of GSA World Services, which is encapsulated in our bylaws, Article 2, Section 1. GreySheeters Anonymous World Services, acting through the Board of Trustees, has but one purpose, that of serving the fellowship of GreySheeters Anonymous. It is, in effect, an entity created to maintain services for those who seek, through GSA, the means for arresting the disease of compulsive eating through following the principles of the GreySheet Plan of Eating. The Board of Trustees of GSAs shall use its best efforts to ensure the integrity of the GreySheet is maintained, for the board is regarded by the Fellowship of GSA as the custodian of the GreySheet. I underlined some parts that I think are key. So we offer a service. It's for those who want what we do. And you have asked us to protect the integrity of the Gray Sheet. So the board in 2017 was hearing from the fellowship that there was increasing levels of concern about more and more extreme variations, drifting away from the core principles of what Gray Sheet abstinence is. So in January of 2018, the board commissioned the Gray Sheet committee. They appointed me as chair, and they appointed 13 or 14 members with over 20 years of abstinence. We met twice a month for 2.5 years. In September of 2019, the World Service Conference voted that we would write and publish a report, and it would be disseminated via intergroup service reps and group service reps. We published our report to the board in August of 2020, and in November, it was emailed to all ISRs and all GSRs. And last year, we had a volunteer create a secure PDF. So the original PDF was not secure. The one we circulated in November of 2022 is secure. And we, as requested by the conference, we emailed it to all the ISRs and GSRs and requested that they give it to all qualified sponsors for use as they sponsor GreySheeters. So if you read the report, which I encourage you to do, we definitely identified that our mission was to focus on the core principles of Gray Sheet abstinence and not to answer every potential variation of every minor detail about what we might put in our mouths. So there are many questions we did not think were any threat to the unity of the program, and we made no statement on those issues. The report consists, as I said, of a series of clarifying statements about the foods we eat and how we eat them, and some guidelines for sponsors about things like health, religion, eating out, weight gain, etc. And in the end, it ends up with recommendations. So I really want to stress that these were recommendations for how it might be used. The recommendations to us as individuals was that we would read the report, ask ourselves, is my abstinence aligned with what is agreed upon in this report as core Gray Sheet abstinence? Discuss it with my sponsor. If my abstinence varies from what's in the report, what am I going to ask myself what I'm going to do about that? And if I change what I'm doing, how does that affect how I sponsor? How does that affect how I talk to other GreySheeters about my abstinence? And maybe perhaps most importantly for our unity, how will my decision to align or not align with the definition of abstinence that's in the report, how will it affect my group and Gray Sheet as a whole? Again, my emphasis on the recommendations for the groups and for world services. The recommendations state that groups and intergroups may decide to elect trusted servants who align their abstinence with the report. The World Service Conference might define Gray Sheet groups as those whose trusted servants align their abstinence with the report. They might decide that the Board of Trustees should align their abstinence with the report. I will say that to my knowledge, no group has done anything like this. So, which just goes to show the report is the report. It's a service for us to decide how we will use it. Linda, can you give me a signal? Is Linda on the screen? Let's see. Linda, can you let me know when I have 1 minute?
You've got 1:40.
Thank you, Linda. So just to stress again, the GreySheet committee was called into service to bring us back to unity around our common definition of abstinence. It was published in the spirit of Tradition 1, and it's published in the spirit of our long-standing statement, if you want what we have, do what we do. So the report just clarifies what we do. It is for each of us to decide how we make use of it. Before I get into some of the questions that came before this today, before the town hall, does anybody have any questions about the background or the development of the report or the intent of the report? And you'd need to raise your digital hand so I can see you at on the home screen. Okay, so I see your hand, Catherine. We did receive some questions before today, and almost all of those questions were specific questions around the food. As I said, the committee is not an ongoing service that stands by waiting to interpret the GreySheet for us. If we have questions about the food and how we weigh and measure from the GreySheet, we take those questions to our sponsor.
That's time, Grania.
Thank you, Linda. I'll just take Catherine's question and then I'll turn it back to you, Stacy. Catherine?
Thank you so much, Grania. Thank you for that. Catherine, I'm in Canada. And my question is, or clarification, I guess, related to, or concern maybe is a better word. When there's a new sponsee, and they have their 90 days, and then, so is there a statement actually on the document? I read it so long ago, Grania, that says clearly that very thing. Like I tell that with my sponsors that, you know, your food, it's between you and I. Like that's a beautiful document, and it's wonderful. But that's how I was given the GreySheet, and that's what I pass on. And so, but I have a little more time, right? And I'm just thinking of those newer sponsees who may not have the strength, maybe, to stand up to somebody who is kind of using it in a way to justify something else. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So I'm just wondering, is there a clear statement that we can point to on it that says just what you expressed very clearly here in sort of a succinct way?
Well, the recommendations that are on the screen right now are in the document. So I just copied and pasted from the report, the recommendation that each of us read the report, ask ourselves, how is our abstinence in alignment with this, talk to our sponsor. So if that's what you're asking, I hope I'm clear about the question, that our abstinence is ultimately between us and our sponsor. The report is just a service to both of us to help us be in the center of GreySheet.
Right. Okay. And then it just occurred to me when you were speaking that when it talked about aligning our abstinence, I always think of people who might be doing something that traditionally hasn't been done in GreySheet. When I think of that, like sort of coming to back to the core, but I suppose it could go the other direction, coming from the other direction as well, like it's so people feeling pressure to, and it goes back to what you said already, people feeling pressure to add things to what normally they wouldn't have had in the line they were given. So I really appreciate your reiterating for all of us that GreySheet, the way we do GreySheet has not changed, the tradition that we have with these clarifications, because I've had phone calls of people, using, and it's being used, it can be being used as a document to sort of back up doing something else,
Okay.
than what they're
Thank you.
sponsoring. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. I see we have other hands, and but I did say I would turn it back to Stacy. I just want to conclude by saying that it's gone out of my head. Never mind. It's gone out of my head. Stacy, I'm going to turn it back to you. Perhaps we can come back to these questions since we didn't have earlier questions.
Yeah, if we can you stop sharing your screen, Grania?
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you very much for that report. We'll take them now, those questions. So if you can, Linda, if you will give us 5 more minutes, please. And then Dottie, you're next.
Stacey, sorry, Dottie, before I remembered what I meant to say. In the interest of time, I eliminated a slide that talked about how to get a copy of the report. So the request was that we emailed it to ISRs and GSRs as requested by the conference. The conference suggests that we get it from our GSR or in our ISR. So if you do not have a copy of the report, you should ask your sponsor or your GSR or your ISR. And if you don't know who your ISR is, those are all on the website under intergroups. The contact information for your intergroup service rep is on the website under intergroups. Thank you. Dottie. You're muted, Dottie.
Hi, I'm Dottie, absent, grateful. And thank you so much. That was so clear and concise. I would love to have a copy of that PowerPoint. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Dottie. It will be published with the notes from the town hall at the end of the month. Well, probably in the middle of May at this point, on the website under town halls, under World Services. Sarah?
Thanks, Grania. I want to concur. That was a fabulous presentation. Thank you. My question is around phone calls I get. People know that I follow the GreySheet closely as written back in Cambridge. And people will, I get quite a few calls actually saying, how can that other person be doing this, or should I be doing this? And when I say talk to your sponsor, I would say about 50% of the time, the problem is with the sponsor, that they are wanting something else and the sponsor isn't doing that. And I know what I do, but I would love to hear what you would recommend in a situation like that.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Actually, you reminded me that there are many members of the GreySheet committee are on the call and on the meeting, and they will remember we had a member of the committee who repeatedly stated, when you walk into a GreySheet meeting, you do not check your brains at the door. Each of us is responsible for our own abstinence. We come into the fellowship looking for people who have what we want. Happy, joyous, and free lives. The problem with the food is no longer their problem. They have freedom from compulsion and obsession. So each of us is responsible to find a sponsor who we trust is doing what those of us who have been happy, joyous, and free of the obsession and the compulsion for over 40 years, over 30 years, we need to be doing what they did. We had another member of the committee who talked about what is the safest practice around the food. And if I want what the long-timers have, I need to find a sponsor who's doing what the long-timers do. And what the long-timers do is encapsulated in the report. But nobody can force anybody to find, to leave a sponsor who's deviating and find a sponsor who's aligning. That is up to each of us. We don't check our brains at the door.
Thank you, Grania. And then thank you, Sarah. This is what we'll do. Since we still have 10 minutes left over that we'll use at the end for questions and feedback to the Board of Trustees. So if you have any further questions about Grania's presentation or the clarifications, just write them down and then you can bring them up at the end. Okay, so Linda, now it's 4 minutes for Grania to talk about the history of GreySheeters Anonymous. And this is about our next special topic, which is our anniversary. So Grania, go ahead.
Thank you, Stacy. I keep losing my unmute button. So for those of you who participated in our anniversary, you have seen this very, very brief history of GreySheeters Anonymous before. So we are now 25 years old. And that does not mark the first beginnings of the GreySheet community. The GreySheet community got started in 1977. When Sally and George D. in Cambridge, Massachusetts, decided that what we needed was AA for food, and they were going to take the most popular and successful food plan in the original program, and we were going to use it without exception, no matter what, and we were going to put precision and specificity on all the things that are slightly vague on the original GreySheet. The first meeting that they started was on Saturday mornings in the First Church in Cambridge, and this is that church. This is where we got started in 1977. In the early 80s, Val moved from Cambridge to New York and started the first GreySheet meeting in New York in her home. And the first place they met outside of her home was in the Jan Hus Presbyterian Church on East 74th Street, which I know many people here have been to meetings there. And that was the first spreading of GreySheet outside of its source in Cambridge. But by 1995, there were 128 GreySheet groups around the world, from Jerusalem to Paris to Seattle, Puerto Rico, St. Croix, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Ann Arbor. Many of our longstanding communities started in the early 90s. In 1996, the New York community approached our original food fellowship and asked, since we have all these groups around the world, can we please form an intergroup within the original fellowship to support all these groups where we do GreySheet? And the original fellowship said, no, you can't have an intergroup. And by the way, you can't use the GreySheet anymore. We will sue you if you continue to use the GreySheet. So in 1998, 4 intrepid New York GreySheeters founded GSA, GreySheeters Anonymous, as a separate 12-step fellowship. 3 of those GreySheeters are still alive and they are still abstinent today, proving the point that service is a strong sustainer of abstinence. So our primary purpose in GreySheeters Anonymous is to stay abstinent and to carry the Cambridge GreySheet message to the next compulsive eater, which essentially is we weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the GreySheet without exception. We don't eat no matter what. Abstinence is the most important thing in our lives, and it works if you work it. So today we have 140 groups with 216 meetings around the world. We have formed 10 intergroups of our own. Most of those are regional intergroups like the Northeast or Europe or Iceland or Israel, but we also have a special intergroup for the groups that meet on a phone bridge. That's the phone bridge intergroup. We also have our newest intergroup, which is a language-based intergroup, La Comunidad Hispana. Thank you, Linda. La Comunidad Hispana is a worldwide intergroup for those who speak Spanish. We have our World Service Conference every year where every group and intergroup can send a delegate to make decisions how we manage our fellowship. And the point of managing it is to carry the message. And Stacy and I serve on the board, and our job is to do what you tell us to do through the conference. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grania, for that. And if you can stop sharing your screen.
If I could, there we go.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you so much. Linda, if you can give, is Marcella and Yami talk about the Jubilee year of fiestas for 4 minutes.
I'm so sorry, but Marcela is not here, and she was the one who is going. So please, if you can just put our on the queue, so maybe Marcela is coming because he wasn't feeling very well. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Linda, will you give yourself 2 minutes to talk about the census, GreySheet counts?
Sure, I can do that. Hi, my name is Linda. I'm chair of the structure committee and a GreySheeter, and I do what you do. The last census that we took was in 2018, and you can find the link to the data on that and the link to the new census on the GreySheet website. And I haven't looked currently, but I think after today, it's going to be in the big banner that's on the homepage when you land on the homepage. And we very much would like everyone to get counted. We want to know where you are in the world, how much abstinence you have, how you found us. And all of this is in an effort to better take the message to the compulsive eater who still suffers. So you also have the opportunity on the census to sign up for the phone list, to be an area contact, and to sign up for service matters, because service is slimming, as they say. Let's see, sometimes after people have hit the submit button, they get a confirmation message in their spam or trash email. And that sometimes asks that you verify that you got that email. Sometimes it just says you are, your submission has been accepted. So just maybe try to look for that confirmation email and see if there's a second step. We don't know why it's happening, so we don't know who gets what. Let's see. I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Please raise your digital hand if you do. Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry. I won't do a qualification in just time. The one thing, Linda, is that when I did it, it said subscribe, and that kind of hesitated to subscribe because I thought I may be subscribing to something. I don't know why it didn't say submit, but I wound up doing it again, and I said, well, that must be, I don't see any submit. It must be subscribe. That did make me a little leery because I didn't know if I was subscribing to like the Survey Monkey or whatever program you were using.
Yeah, I believe it meant subscribing to Service Matters, but you're right, that is confusing. And Grania, do you have anything to share on that? My time is up.
Yes. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Terry. So please do read the instructions at the top of the form. The form is available in English, Hebrew, Spanish, and Icelandic, and the instructions all include the statement that because we're using MailChimp to conduct the census, we don't have any control over what that button says, and it has to say subscribe. And in bold at the top of the page, it says you are not subscribed to anything unless you opt in to Service Matters or one of the other services. Yeah, please read the instructions.
Can somebody mute me, please? Can't do it on my.
Thank you, Terry, for that. And thank you, Grania. Kay.
My question is there any way to know whether you actually subscribed if you don't get any of these messages?
I'll turn that to Grania.
Yes, you can email GreySheetCounts@GreySheet.org. I'll put it in the chat as well. GreySheetCounts@GreySheet.org if you want to verify that you were counted. And go ahead, Kay.
I said thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for your question, Kay. All right, any more questions about the census? Okay, thank you, Linda, so much. And now we're going to hear from, we're going to get an update on the progress of our vision and 4 core functions. So our vision is when anyone, anywhere realizes they have a problem with food, they think of the GreySheet solution. And our 4 core functions are integrity of the GreySheet program, literature, public information, and website. So Linda, it's 5 minutes for each of these. The first is integrity of the GreySheet program, and that's if you can time Grania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm still Grania. I'm still a compulsive eater. And I'm not going to take 5 minutes. I just have 2 areas, 2 slides to tell you about. So as Stacy said, our vision, the reason that World Services exists is that we want to carry the message to every single person in the universe, so that if anybody ever in their lifetime thinks, I might have a problem with food, that one of the many solutions that occurs to them is GreySheet. Not just Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and OA and all of the others, but GreySheet is somewhere in their mind. So we think that the first thing we have to do is to protect the GreySheet program so we have something to pass on. And so our job as the Board of Trustees is to protect the integrity of the program. And part of that is to protect the GreySheet document itself and make it available. So what we did in the last quarter was we had it translated and printed in Spanish. And now we are working with La Comunidad Hispana to correct the translation and reprint it in Spanish. We are also working with the European Intergroup and the German GreySheeters to finalize the German GreySheet and to translate the clarifications. We are working with our attorney to protect our organization from liability around personal safety issues, because if we don't have if we are open financially, we could lose everything. We wouldn't have money to carry on our services. Today, we are seeing the culmination of our work over the last 6 months with La Comunidad Hispana, the Icelandic and Israeli intergroups, to engage 3 interpreters to integrate our fellowship worldwide and ensure Tradition 1 GreySheet unity. So we have very strong GreySheet communities in Israel and Iceland, and now in the Spanish language, and they have been isolated from the English speakers, or the English speakers have been isolated from them. And so we are drifting apart, and we want to make sure that we're all together in one fellowship. And the board has also implemented, on the advice of a volunteer attorney who is a GreySheet member, our conflict of interest policy to make sure that all our decisions are made without favor to ourselves. And we've strengthened our financial policies to protect your donations. In general, over the last quarter, we've provided training for new GSRs so that they understand their role in supporting their group in serving the primary purpose. We've provided the intergroups with guidance on the fact that each of their groups are autonomous and can make decisions to run their meetings their own way. We've provided guidance to committees, your World Service Conference committees, on how to make decisions that take into consideration what the fellowship has asked for, to be accountable to the fellowship. And we've answered questions about applying the traditions to our public information activity. So the Tradition 6 says we have no affiliation. Our activities, our events, our meetings, our groups have no affiliation with outside enterprises. So we want to be sure that our retreats and roundups also have no affiliation with outside enterprises, because we want to ensure the singleness of purpose and the singleness of our message. So those are some of the things the board has been doing to protect the integrity of the gray sheet. Back to you, Stacy.
Thank you so much, Grania, for that. All right. Any questions for Grania? Okay, Linda, if you can give 5 minutes to Susan, who's going to talk about our next core function, which is literature.
Hello, everyone. I'm Susan, Chair of the Literature Committee. I'm just going to start by reiterating a tiny bit from the report overview that I gave of the Literature Committee's work in January. There are 11 voting members on the Literature Committee and about 7 active volunteers. So all of the work that we are doing, I want to start out by letting you know it's not a very large group of people. We share the duty to create clear and concise pieces of long and short form literature that are spiritual in nature and helpful to and speak the language of both compulsive eaters and food addicts who still suffer and those who are maintaining their gray sheet abstinence. Our purpose is to ensure that every aspect of the GSA program of recovery is presented in adequate, comprehensive, and consistent written material. The literature we produce includes books, pamphlets, leaflets, and other materials that are reviewed and approved for distribution to our members, friends, professionals, and to the world. Now, since our meeting in January, we have had a couple of accomplishments, one of which is that we are one of the first committees to have approved a specialist delegate. This will be a voting member who will be able to be a resource for all of the members of the Literature Committee. And our very first specialist delegate I'm going to introduce very quickly is Sarah, who is a former chair of the Literature Committee and brings a wealth of experience to that position. And we're very, very glad to have her helping us. We have also our subcommittee that was working on the travel tips and dining pamphlet has now completed several rounds of edits, and we have what we believe will be the final manuscript heading to the Board of Trustees probably later today or tomorrow. And so within this calendar year, I am sure you will see that pamphlet. We've also got another manuscript that is close to completion, and that is a reprint of various letters. The project is called Sharing the Solution. We have the heartbeat of GSA, the committee's booklet, which is moving full steam ahead. I'm not going to give a promise of a date for that, but I do think that is something you can look forward to within the next year. A number of translations, of course, are going to be moving forward, and we are supporting the Spanish Living Abstinent translation. We've also got a history book in progress, but that is some way away from publication. There are a number of pamphlets and books that we've had to pause at this point. We will be reorganizing and restructuring a bit so that we can get those members who've been working on projects that are completed onto other projects, if they so choose, and any new volunteers who come forward. So that is where we are since January. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Susan, for that. And right now we're at the 45-minute mark. So, Jamid, is there do we need to do a switch?
No, because Marcela is not here. So I think if it's Olga, okay, can you stay? Okay, so Olga is going, so we don't need this break.
Okay, thank you so much. And before we move on to our next core function, which is public information from Liat, I just wanted to, I just noticed that there are, okay, now I can't see it, but there were over 85 participants here. at one point. And I just want to, while you're all still here, just thank each and every one of you for what you contribute to this fellowship and just showing up and being here. And thank you. All right. Oh, there's a question from Catherine. Is that for me or for Susan?
It was for Susan.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much. You guys are awesome. So I'm just wondering, Susan, or if somebody could speak to the preamble. I've been noticing that people are changing it to align with there's two versions in AA, and what usually happens is, what is supposed to happen is they take a group conscience over which one to adopt, whether they say the one men and women, or they say the one people, and it's a Grapevine publication. It was first published from them, right? So I'm just wondering, our preamble, it is as it was, right? Like we don't change, just like we don't change the steps, we don't change to fit what we want. We don't, as individuals, change that, right? Is that am I understand that correctly?
Okay, so well, there's a couple pieces to that. I'll just address that very quickly. Is that GreySheet World Services, so on just the World Services, like our website, for example, we use people instead of men and women. Each group is autonomous. They can choose to use people. They can choose to use men and women. Even if the group chooses to use people, the person reading it can say men and women, because there's no police. So that's just, does that answer your question, Catherine?
It does, but I'm wondering, how did that change happen at World Service then? Right, because it was men and women before, was it?
Okay, Grania, do you want to address that?
Yep, any delegate here could address that, because you'll all remember last year at the World Service Conference, we unanimously adopted a proposal from the Literature Committee to adopt the preamble in both forms. We have permission from Alcoholics Anonymous to use either form, from the Grapevine to use either form of the preamble. So the Literature Committee proposed to the conference last year that we adopt both forms and make it each group's option to use whichever one they want, and we did.
Does that make sense, Catherine?
That does. That's very reassuring. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Linda, if you can give Liat 5 minutes to talk about our core function, public information.
Thanks, Stacy. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. Liat, very, very gratefully abstinent, compulsive eater in Bloomington, New Jersey. First of all, I just want to thank everybody who's here, and Grania and Stacy and Joey and the whole board of trustees, and you guys are doing an amazing job. Yeah, it was just very emotional hearing our history. I was like all at once, and I actually lived 1.5 miles from that church in college, and that's like, wow, I was so desperate. So it's on that note that we jump into our public information committee, because what if I had known about GreySheet back then? And I'm just going to share my screen. A newcomer who still suffers. Okay. So public information is one of our 4 core functions. And who are we? Well, we meet monthly, the first Sunday of the month at 10 a.m. This being the exception. With Mother's Day, we got a bit thrown off with schedules. But we have very consistently 3 voting members and a single volunteer, with 2 additional voting members in Israel. Really, like very consistently, we're actually all on the East Coast. But we do have a beautiful range from our very, very dear, cherished volunteer newcomer, counting days, all the way up through many decades of abstinence and service. So it's a really beautiful little conviviality. As an amazing fellow in France says, we are small but mighty. We really are. So we are empowered to work on GreySheet events, social media, and stories. With regard to events, as you have heard, if you were at our earlier convocations of these type, we've initiated and executed a new process, but we are fine-tuning it at the moment with all of the, as you use it, you're supporting us in the fine tuning process. We're discovering things that need to be adjusted, improved, clarified. So please, thank you, all of it, for your patience with us as it improves and changes. It is brand new. Social media, I will get into in a moment. I'm talking fast because I want to leave time for questions. And stories, please send us your stories. We're currently collecting stories. If you could send those to pick@greysheet.org. If you think your story is not important, every single story, like every single one of us has an incredible story. Your story could save someone's life. I know when I came into GreySheet, I didn't hear anyone telling my exact same story, but everybody spoke to me in a way that I felt like I could relate into in a way that I had never felt before. So there's something irreplaceable about your story. Please send them in, even if you're shy about writing. We want to hear from you. Okay. Why are we doing social media? So we're doing currently a request for a proposal. We're trying to find a professional because we've never been able to do this before. And we suspect it's because we GreySheeters adore GreySheet, but how do you translate that from like Liat's personal experience or, Blah's personal experience into a we message? We can't see the label from inside the jar. And that is what a professional does. Not to mention how this is like real, this is challenging stuff. So we are trying to create with this professional a targeted strategy. Ultimately, I think something that emerged from the public information's dialogue with amongst itself is that we have not the greatest reputation, if we have to admit, amongst the public, right? Outside of our rooms. It's something we joke about all the time. And it's funny, but it's also incredibly serious. It's deadly. It threatens our capacity to attract newcomers. So on that note, sort of dispelling prevailing myths. But also on a positive note, to share the fact that our lives were saved and that we have a way of living that is so joyful and we love our food, etc. And our goals ultimately are to, obviously, we'd like to gain more followers, improve attraction and retention of newcomers, as well as our existing fellowship, not just more, but like those who are passionate and belong here and will stay here and cultivate a deeper sense of community. I always feel like I have to mention La Comunidad España. How lucky are we? What just happened? I'll end there. I think someone just said time, but that's that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Liat. Thank you. Are there any questions for her? Or anything about public information? Any questions? Okay, here we go, Carla.
Hi, Carla, food addict, compulsive eater, bulimic. Liat, sorry, Alexa's talking to me. What's the word count recommendation for the stories? I need some guidance.
That's such a good question, Carla. Thank you. And I actually have gotten a lot of people emailing me and I should have just anticipated. So thank you again. If you go to the stories on the website, there's an approximate length that those tend to follow. Maybe like 4 paragraphs, like 4 to 10 paragraphs. It's hard to give a word count because I think each paragraph represents like an aspect of someone's story. But it's very much fluid. So if someone sends in a story and it's 30 paragraphs, like maybe it's magnificent. I don't think it's like a hard and fast thing, which is why I do hesitate to put something hard and fast to it. But we do have a beautiful selection of stories that may clarify or inspire particularly. Does that answer your question? Great.
Thank you so much about that. Okay, so let's, Kay, do you have a question?
Yes, the question I have is, what are you doing with the stories? I know there's already stories on the website. Are you using those too? And what are you doing with the stories?
Thanks, Kay. Good question. We do presently have great stories on the website, but they actually haven't been updated in years. I might say decades. I mean, they're amazing. We haven't gotten to the sort of like sorting and filing and deciding yet. It's possible some will be retained. But essentially, we've become an unbelievably diverse group. And the gist is that we don't necessarily see that diversity reflected in our stories, which reminds me, if you speak another language, we would dearly appreciate some like some stories in other languages, or some stories of fellows maybe sharing the experience of being an international member. You know, I myself was in London compared to being here now in America. It's a very different experience. So yeah, just to like refresh it. That makes sense.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Kay. Catherine, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you, everyone. Catherine in Canada, GreySheeter. I'm just wondering, Leah, you may have said this and I might have zoned, but the editorial process for those stories, is that something, are they edited and then sent back to the writer and then sort of a little back and forth, or how is that accomplished? Or is it just, yeah, if you can let me know. Thank you.
Sure. It's a great question.
And just before Leah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Time has been up and our timer just reminded me. So do you want to just answer that quickly?
Yes, very quickly. I'll say, Catherine, please come to our meeting, because clearly you're thinking about all this stuff. We'd love to have you. We're not there yet. I'm going to leave it there. We're just collecting. Please send them in.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let's move on. Linda, if you can give Miguel 5 minutes to talk about website.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. Hello to everyone. I'm Miguel, compulsive eater, and I'm currently the chair of the website committee. Let me just quickly share my screen, see if we can see this. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna be fast as possible. Well, basically, first thing that I wanted to do is to use this chance to thank everyone in the who's been before us in the website committee, because we basically, me and the new team, we have just inherited an amazing website, which has been in the works for years, and it's been a titanic effort from all these people here in the screen. So we'll really want to use this forum to thank them with all our heart for the hard work, and to leave the bar quite high for us now to follow them. So currently, our the committee is formed by 6 members. We are also probably, I'm not sure if we are, but probably the first or maybe only sort of bilingual committee, as there are people in this committee who only speak Spanish, people who only speak English, people who we speak both. So we are trying the experiment of working in a bilingual way, and we translate all the documents, and we translate during the meetings. So far, it's going quite well. So I think it's a proof that this fellowship can go beyond language barriers as much as possible. And just going to go quickly into what our objectives for this year are. Basically, our first objective is something we detected is not really working the way we wanted, which is the calendar feature and registration forms in the website. So there's some kind of limited on the way the website is built that didn't allow us to have it the way we want in terms of searching for meetings, and also being able to understand the time zone the meeting is happening. So we are working now with the help of Sally into creating a new part of that part of the website is going to be redone. It won't really change for you. I mean, you will see it, the way you access and see it, it will be exactly the same, but the functionality will be much better. It will allow us to search for meetings better, and it will also give the viewer the meeting times in their time zone. So wherever you are consulting the website from, you will see the meetings in your time zone, which we think will be an awesome feature and will help a lot to make it a much more useful tool. Also, again, with the registration forms, we just trying to improve the way they work to make things much easier for everyone. A second one is to, as Leah was, we want to liaise with Leah's team and incorporate all these links to social media on the website, and just create this communication between our both committees and try to support each other. Basically, we supporting them as much as we can, and have all because there's loads of things going on in different social media channels. There's the YouTube, the podcast, Facebook, everything. So it would be nice if people can use the GreySheet.org as the main sort of accessing point to everything that has to be with GreySheet. And the other one we'd like to also, probably by the end of this year, we'd like to do a little survey about with all of you guys in the community to understand how the website is working, how you are using it, and what could be improved on it. And then this last sort of additional objective that we are thinking about is to creating a GreySheet app. As you may probably know, there are other fellowships, especially AA. They have like quite good apps that work on as a source of information, usually mostly related to meetings and events. So we are exploring that. It's actually we put it on hold for now because this new, as I told you before, this new rework on the calendar that we are doing will probably be the source that would feed any future app. So we are gonna focus on that first, and then we can then come back and work on the app. And that's probably all. So I'm gonna have some time for questions. Yes. Cancel this, my sharing screen. Yeah, hey, here you go.
Dottie.
Hi, Dottie, compulsive eater again. And I went to the meeting list on the website. I needed to change some information, and I couldn't find a link or a button to take me to a form to make that change. Do I contact the website committee? I'm not sure.
Yeah, if you should be there, but if you don't, you can always email me in website@greysheet.org. I will help you or find someone to help you. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie.
It's time, Miguel.
Oh, it's time. Okay. Okay, Elle, if you can hold on to that question, and if we have time at the end, that would be great. I'll write your name down so I remember to come back to you. Okay, we have 3 presentations by 3 intergroups, so each for 5 minutes, Linda. The first is Caroline for the Southern Central Intergroup. Is Caroline here? And I can't see Grania for some reason on my screen.
Yep, Stacy, I'm here, and I do not see Carolyn on the meeting, so we can skip the Southern Central.
We'll skip that. Let's go back to Elle's question then while we're still on the subject of website. Elle, if you're okay with that.
I'm Elle. Hi, everybody. I'm Elle, compulsive overeater. Miguel, thank you so much for your service. And the website is amazing today. It's so much easier than it's ever been. And I'm wondering, is it possible, I mean, this may be, I'm just lazy, but is it possible to maybe have a way that you can get to the meetings quicker without having to scroll down under meetings and go through all the categories? Like, could there be a star somewhere, meetings, and just click on that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. Yeah, that's something we need to also I mean, once this new tool is in place, we'll probably just rework, okay, how do we access things and make things, probably try to make the most common use things more easily available from the home page. So yeah, but so thank you very much for your idea. Yeah.
Thank you, Elle, and thank you again, Miguel. And let's move on to Hólmfríður for the Icelandic intergroup. Iceland.
Komið blessuð og sæl. Ég heiti Hólmfríður og ég fulltrúi svæðisnefndar íslensku og mér finnst alveg frábært að fá að tala íslensku núna því að við erum með þennan frábæra túlk í fyrsta skipti.
I'm sorry, Hólmfríður, sorry to interrupt. Could I just pause for a moment and make sure that Gianni can give us instructions for how the non-Icelandic speakers can hear this?
It wasn't really thought about that. There was someone who was going, are you able to speak in English? Or?
Nee, allt í lagi. Okay. I was under the impression that it worked both ways, but I can't speak English. Hello, and thank you for this wonderful meeting. First, I would like to say I'm sorry I was so late, but the meeting was scheduled at 1600 hours in Iceland. So it was a mistake. I don't know. When did the meeting start? How long have you already been?
The meeting started at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry. Yes, 12 o'clock Eastern time.
Okay, it was
No,
scheduled
I'm
at
wrong.
1600. So
11
it
o'clock
was, I
Eastern
really
time.
wanted to be at the whole meeting, but well, best regards from the Icelandic groups. We are alive and we have 6 meetings. We have 6 meetings every week. The intergroup every month, and we have a good connection, a good relationship. Now we have we are interested in trying to translate the Icelandic the 12 and 12 into Icelandic, and we'll be working on that, how to connect with the board of trustees if it is possible, if we can get money for doing that, or how. And we're also having a SOS group, and we're working on using social media and how. So I think we are doing our best to get more to help GSA more alive in the society. It's very, very useful when I ask somebody, have you heard about GSA? Especially now we have so many people going under the knife and surgeries, and they have never heard of it. And what I am personally very interested in is that the main when we are the message is the happiness. The message is I know new freedom and new happiness because of the measure 3 meals of GreySheet. I think it's very, very important. And probably it could be that we are now in, maybe it is, well, times have changed and people get information from social media, from TikTok or Facebook or whatever. Maybe we should concentrate on that and not on the translation. Maybe that is a little bit old-fashioned now, I don't know. But we are of course, we love our GreySheet and we love our happiness, and we would like to do what we can so that the message carries as we can. But we had the skýrsla, ég man ekki hvernig maður segir skýrsla. We had the report translated into Icelandic, and we have been discussing that. And of course, there are some discussions about that, if we should be able to eat more fish because we have our fish nation. I think that's something that we just have to, we will deal with that on our basis here, because we are aware we're not going to change the GreySheet, of course not. But of course, there are healthy discussions. And I think GSA is going to survive in Iceland, especially if we find good ways to carry the message, bright and blessed as it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your report. All right, and then is Duty available for Israel? And then Linda, if you can give him 5 minutes, that would be great.
So, hello everybody. Thank you for that meeting. For me, I say it was again also a bit crowded, or not crowded, but tough to get in on time, because I just left work. I started on my way with my phone, which I usually don't do. Anyway, I'm here. I heard I was almost from the beginning of the meeting, and I can say that giving a brief of the Israeli community. So the Israeli GSA founded by 3 ladies who used to be part of the GSA community in New York, in GreySheet abstinence. When they moved by coincidence, on 1997, both the 3 of them to Israel, they started meeting in private at homes. A few months later, they founded the room in Tel Aviv, in the special house for women in distress, and began to meet weekly every Sunday night. Until at the end of the year, there were already 5 women continuing over 90 days, and they, with this group, they started the AWOL workshop in Israel. The groups grew bigger and spread rapidly around the country, and very fast. In 2000, in Tel Aviv, we had already 100 people, active members, and over 100 people members. And today we are in, we have 22 GSA face-to-face meetings in the country. 18 of them is in different places. I must say that during the coronavirus crisis, we had some of the places reduced or closed, not because we wanted to close them, but because the places wouldn't do that. And also because there was a big wave of Zoom meeting that started very rapidly. Today, we have a whole schedule of Zoom meetings. Almost every hour, we have a Zoom meeting in Israel, and we have a tight schedule of meetings. We have 2 channels of Zoom. One is made for the Hebrew speaking, and the other one is for Spanish and English speakers. And some people, groups have founded some other channels for special meetings that are topic targeted, like a certain book or a certain way of all of course following the GreySheet program. We replaced all the phone meetings by Zoom. We used to have the 3rd channel, which was on the phone, and it was replaced by the Zoom, with the possibility for those who can't use that can use the Zoom program because of certain limits with their phones, to join the Zoom meeting in from a phone, from a regular phone or not smartphone. We had I say fortunate occasion of the Hispanic speaking community that made for that occasion of 25 years a big event in Tel Aviv. That was really nice.
Judy, that's time.
Okay, so I just would want to thank all the people that make it happen for us.
Thank you so much for your presentation. All right, so in July, we will be hearing from the following intergroups: Connecticut, Phonebridge, Northeast, and comunidad sorry, I was just reading the chat. España, may I do it for Marcella? I don't know what that is. That's okay. All right. Grania, you're going to do the donations report, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Stacy. I am Grania, compulsive eater, and once again, I'm going to try and share my screen with you and show you our monthly donations report. One of our main goals is to be transparent and accountable to the fellowship for the donations we receive. We receive donations to World Services from individuals, from groups, from events like retreats and roundups, and from intergroups. And we have a budget of $42,000. It's here in the second column. $42,000 is our goal. Those are our expenses for the year, will be $42,000. Which means that we need to receive each month, we need to receive about $3,500 in donations. So far this year, for the first 3 months, our average has been $2,300 in donations. So we are falling behind on reaching our goal of $42,000. If we continue on this track, we will only receive donations of $28,000, and we will not be able to do all the things that we have been asked to do by the conference. We report this back to you as a total. That's the first column, GSAs, GSA World Services, but we also divide it up by intergroup area, so you can get a more granular view about whether people in your region are donating, whether your groups and intergroups are donating. And we are basing this on the 2018 census, in which we counted about 1,000 GreySheeters around the world, 50 in Connecticut, 70 in Europe, 60 in Iceland, et cetera, et cetera. This is the number of members in each area. We divided that into the percentage of members in each intergroup, and then we asked those intergroup populations to consider an equal proportion of donations. So we report back each month how much we have received in donations from each intergroup area, so you have a better sense for how your intergroup area is doing. So the news is not great right now. We will have to cut back on our expenses if our donations do not increase. You can donate by donating to your group or your intergroup or directly to World Services. And I'm going to ask Joey, our assistant treasurer who's here today, to put the information in the chat for how to donate directly to World Services, which you can do using PayPal or text if you are in the US. If you're in the United States, you can text your donations to World Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Grania. All right, and thank you for putting that in the chat, Joey. So we have 4 minutes left. I will just, I'm going to make a few announcements. So, or Carla, are you supposed to be making those announcements or me?
It seems as though I could do a couple of them. Yes,
Sure.
I'll be succinct and happy to have people advise me about when I'm not. Carla, and I've got my communication committee chair hat on, and we have the privilege of helping the delegates for World Service conference meeting and the rest of the community that we very much need in knowing about what's coming up the World Service Conference and learning about the traditions and concepts. And more specifically, we will be starting to have committees come with their proposals starting in May, which is tomorrow. The meeting is not tomorrow. I have just, let me hit the return button and we'll get that information in the chat. it's the second Sunday of the month, and it is at noon Eastern time. That's the committee's connecting meeting. We go alphabetically, which puts archives and communications up first to talk about proposals for 2023 and take questions. This provides chairs and ISRs an opportunity to take the information to their groups and intergroups. So that's that. And then also we have the traditions and concepts roundup. In 2023, we zhuzhed it up a bit, and we are doing them quarterly in a roundup style. The next one is in May. It's on the 21st of May, which is again a Sunday. And it is at a time that is in your chat because it's not on my lips right now. And it's 90 minutes. And what we got great feedback on, and we were hoping so, is that we are asking speakers to speak more in story form, more in offering how these traditions and concepts are working in their service work, etc. And
Carla, can I stop you there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
All right. I just wanted to end by saying that that any suggestions that you have for special topics for the next town hall or future town halls, please let us know. You can email chair@greysheet.org. Any questions, suggestions, and feedbacks can be submitted anonymously through communication@greysheet.org. Notes from previous town halls you can find on www.greysheet.org, World Services, Board of Trustees, and then town halls. That's how you would find that. Our next town hall, I'm glad we'll do an hour and a half again. That turned out perfectly, is Sunday, July 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I appreciate each and every one of you. We are always available to hear your suggestions and comments, and please give us feedback, chair@greysheet.org. And why don't we can end this with the serenity prayer. Let's just do that. So feel free to unmute and it will sound interesting. Okay. No matter what, God.
Self-things I cannot change. Precious change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thanks, everybody. Good job.
Coming back.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good job,
Stacy.
Grania.
Thank you for
Awesome
the
job.
translators.
Thank you.